and I say automatically, nothing's automatic on the blockchain. It's just the user doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to interact with it. So it will get migrated across, and then it will be locked up in a PulseX V2 liquidity pool. And the reason we chose PulseX V2 is we want to continue to show total value locked plus reduce slippage on the PulseChain side. So we want to see the TVL of PulseChain go up. Imagine locking a liquidity pool, throwing away the keys, that it doesn't have an NFT like V3 where you just claim the fees. With a V2, it automatically the fees are just added to the LP. So it'll be an ever increasing, ever growing TVL on PulseX V2. Not to mention, I think there's a lot of people over on that side that are Richard Hart maximalists that will be very happy to see that his particular DEX, the PulseX DEX, is going to be the one that gets immense value out of this, especially over time.
Sweet. Okay, that's a lot of information. I'm trying to think where we should start. Zenith and or Larry, do you guys have sound checks yet?
And we're playing with it. I think you guys are doing good between you two.
Okay, sweet. Can you forward me?
We'll just basically make the Kinetics Well show, and if Zenith wants to go pop in and you guys spitball with Ken while I play.
Can you forward me that questionnaire, Larry, that you were showing Zenith a second ago?
That's not something that's public. That was just something that we were talking about before. Ken, if anyone listened to the RHMax, we kind of talked about a lot of points of how everything works from the Giff tech side on what Perma Tokenomics means, what a meme coin is, and how it actually builds into a dynamic system with what we're doing. Can you talk about that for a bit?
Okay, so I guess to tackle the first one, what a meme coin is, it's really just a marketing narrative. It's something with some kind of funny picture that gets people talking about it, that sitting around the water cooler, and then the green candle comes and automatically people just want to start filing in because we know how everyone chases green candles. So it's just a marketing meme with a green candle. And unfortunately, they don't always stay a green candle, especially if you get it cheap enough and people participate early enough, that then they tend to dump on other people's heads. Unless the founders are smart enough to make sure to protect that price, and not just the founders, because like with Giff Tech has proven, it's very much a community driven initiative and effort to help sustain particular price points. But the thing about and Gifford really kind of was a meme coin, just because everyone thinks, they think Gifford where they hear, oh, clothing company. There's like a clothing brand company that's released a token. But as we all know, Giff here, who is in the chat, he's just gone by that for so long that it's really an experimental builder's token to try all these different tokenomics out and suss them out and make sure. And fortunately, in a lot of ways, there's I guess you could say there's probably a few emerging properties that we hadn't thought 100% through or hadn't speculated on. But most part, there's a lot of things that went exactly as we thought they would. The emergent property I can think of right off the top of my head that's just glaring to me is how quickly people that started participating saw the value of this thing. Like we knew we saw it, but we had theorized amongst ourselves for the whole development period of Pulsar and even before. And so the fact that people picked up on it so quick and saw the value of how this system works and how it can intrinsically stair step up and be a long-term hold and not just a meme token that's pumped one day and dumped the next. So that was the emergent property that I see. There's probably others I could come up with if you gave me some time to really suss out, looking at some of the different activities and or action on the price chart and what wallets are coming from and things of that nature. But that's the big one to me. And it's really a nice, vindication for us as a team to see it do what it has done and to build such a strong base in the way of the users itself that understand how there's this opportunity for everyone to win. And it's like I said, it's vindication for us, and it's really vindication for Pulsar long term.
Okie dokie. I want to cover a lot of the basics of Gifford. So one of the things that Larry was talking about with me and Zenith earlier is like there's only ever 1 billion Gifford tokens, correct? That's the right number? Is 1 billion?
That is correct. Yes.
Circulation. Okay. And as people, so total amount of supply of Gifford starts up here, right? Or no, starts up here because I'm facing backwards on the camera right now. So total amount of Gifford starts up here, and then Perma Gifford, which is minted, like it's a 1-for-1, correct? It's a 1-for-1 with a small bit of pulse, right? Pulse and Gifford is used to create PermaGiff, if I can recall correctly. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's 1 GIF and 10 pulse to create 1 PermaGiff.
Okay. And then what happens to the 10 pulse, and then what happens to the Gifford when PermaGiff is created?
So what you see is the GIF itself is sent to the dead address. So it's right now, the GIF address, I think it's 4.15 or 4.16 GIF total supply of the 1 billion that's already burnt and sent to the dead address. And the dead address is the number 3 holder of GIF currently at this time. So 10% of that pulse that's run through the protocol fee. I don't want to skip over that too quick, but I got a 3-year-old pounding on my door over here. But of the 100% of the GIF received by the protocol fee, 10% goes to an address that has no expectations. It's none of your business. The other 90% goes to buy and burn pGiff off of the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, okay, hang on a second. Larry, I think I'm going to mute you real quick. Oh, never mind. Are you good?
We have cobbled it better. So our inputs are a little shy, and we're working through the kinks. But if you can hear us, that's a good start. Can you hear Zenith?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me, good sir?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think we're good. Do we want to hop on camera, or we just?
Let's not tempt the beast right now. I'm still very short on the audio. But what we can do is try to share a screen, so that way we can at least have the stuff up. Where do we have share screen?
There you go.
All right, and then we'll just put this one. Where are we? We're on screen 2. Sure, you can be on screen 2. Share screen, and then let's bring up at least the flow chart. At least the flow chart. So actually, we can. Cause we got to talk directly into this guy. We can actually kind of talk about the points of the Gifford loop system.
Okay. I have clicked on your screen. Does it show you guys, or so I think that when people talk, their screens pop up. I'm not entirely sure how this Telegram live thing works. I'm not sure what's going on with the folks at home. When you guys, can I get some feedback from the audience, or actually Larry, when I click on your screen, does it widescreen?
Okay, now we should have something up. Do you guys see that right there?
Yeah, we can see the chart up.
Okay,
yep, I can see it as well.
I'm going to try one more thing to see if we can get some more input here. Can someone else talk?
Yes, I am talking right now.
Okay, that's getting us a little bit louder. That's better. Okay. Technical difficulties. Yeehaw. So if we're looking at the system right here, you start off by any type of, let's just call it meme token, but really it's just a vanilla wrapper off a deployer. Almost everything that you're going to deal with an ERC or a PRC doesn't have really any metadata or components attached to it. It's just vanilla. You go to gopulse.com and create it. And so what Giff tried to do in the beginning is suss out
how we were going to build the Pulsar pathway. And with the Pulsar pathway, we're dealing with bridging. We're dealing with Permabull tokenomics on Ethereum. We're dealing with binding that combined energy and bringing it over to PulseChain to marry two L1s together. Well, the first thing that you're going to want to do within that system is test out, the foundation of it. So to do that, he started with a meme coin. We started with Giff. And during the initial process of Giff, 1 million Giff was created. And then 1 month ago today is when PermaGiff was actually launched. And what PermaGiff does is it takes your meme coin and threads it through a system by using Pulse, where you're going to have 10 native Pulse per GIF that's going to be used to create PermaGiff. So what happens when you create PermaGiff? Well, on one side of the equation, you have the original GIF token that you brought in. It's going to go to the debt address. That's very important because the debt address allows a token that's not fundamentally burnable, configured within the code, to go to a locked address that's no longer accessible, but it's actually still considered market cap. It's just in a particular wallet that it can never come out of. Now, 90% of that economic energy on that other side going across this pipe goes to the Permabull smart contract. So the user immediately comes down here and gets the GIF token. But 90% of that economic energy used to create that token is going up into the smart contract. And at that time, as the cycle goes, the Permabull Tokenomics isn't on the iBurn, it will be user function called. On the Gifford side, it is not at this moment. And it goes through Pateus to use the best routing to buy that asset you just created and delete it completely from the system. So it's like it never existed. So let's just start off with that if anyone has any questions or if they understand this portion of this two-component system, because as we build on that foundation, it's necessary to understand this part.
I just have a quick question. You said that it goes to an address, right? That so does anybody have keys to that address that where it's going to, or is just a lost address? Like how does that function? How do people know that that those funds can't be moved? Like you said, it's not in the code. It's just a dead address. Like how do people know that those funds cannot be accessed or moved by anybody?
Well, this is the traditional dead address from Ethereum. So it's also known as the zero address or the black hole. So this has been going on since the inception of ETH, is when things are burned, they're sent to the black hole, which is the traditional one. On PulseChain, technically, there's the 369 address, but since we're paying homage to everything that came before, since PulseChain is a fork of Ethereum, it's going to the dead address, which traditionally anyone that programs on Ethereum understands that's where you send tokens to be burned.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that clarifies that.
Yeah, and if you want to just do your own research, you can search DEAD address in Ethereum or black hole or the zero address.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? You want to come? You want to sit and talk for a bit?
Sure. So I was doing a lot of research for this one, and on one of the previous streams, you guys talked about using something called a proxy contract. I wanted to ask if you guys can expand on that just a little bit. Like, what is a proxy contract, and how does that relate to, like, smart contract security and kind of to what Farmer was talking about, the accessibility of admin keys?
Ken, do you want to take that and you jump in, or do you want me to take that? Okay, he's not there. I'll go ahead and take it. So anyway, there is an immutability on actually the token address itself. It's the burn address or the burn contract itself that has a proxy. And what that really means is that certain things can be upgraded within the system. And if you look at basically how PulseChain itself can be upgraded, it has that same fundamental use case. However, the actual token contract for the Perma asset itself has no admin keys for that. The buy and burn, how it's being routed through, and how that particular use case actually can be modified in a way. But it's not actually the process of not understanding how admin keys are called admin keys, but also understanding what functions are available to an admin. So, for example, the funds are immutably locked into this contract. That is not something that the proxy can actually affect, alter, or do. What they can is alter their deployment through a system. You can consider it like a system update or a firmware update, or how I just had to, for this road right here, do a hard reset to it to then actually patch it, to then connect it back into the system, connect it back into my computer. So when you lock something completely and something can never be altered, you've got certain tokens that have locked liquidity, and due to a whoopsie, all that's lost and gone. And so there's many other ways to understand where having admin functionality is bad, very bad, or where your needed functionality is good. So that way you can change your wheels on your car. You can actually replace the oil in your engine. Those are things that require maintenance. Now, in crypto, there are lots of upgrades that go on vicariously. So, for example, TitanX is locked in a V3 only liquidity pool, which means that their stuff can't be properly routed, upgraded, or utilized with better tech, faster situations, or be nimble to build this type of perma asset, which has a growth expansion on what happens with what we do next. So, for example, what we're doing with iBurn is an extension off of Gifford Tech. You would want those two burn contracts to work together as they continuously upgrade.
Excellent. And then the only other question I had for the Giff and PermaGiff tokens is around the idea that this is an experimental, or this is just an experiment run in real time. So it's kind of two parts, which is that even though it is an experiment, there is absolutely real world value that is being put into these tokens and on this chain. And then how do you guys think that factors into what people should, I know I'm using the word should here, but like how should people treat this in regards to the rest of the tokens in their portfolio? And then also, lastly, since it is an experiment, as men of science, did you guys have a hypothesis going into this?
Yeah, of course. And that was actually the important thing, is that between Gifford and myself, we think about the actual outputs of things and the idea that it being, it's called experimental tech, we're just being transparent, that instead of forking code and doing something that's already been done before, we're actually trying to set the bar on how to decouple from the let's fork it, do it again. Oh, it didn't work. Let's fork it, do it again. We want to take an observed approach on how all these paradigms are then restitched back together. And as we're not trying to build so many things onto one strike, we're building it in components to both show us back-tested data on what's going on and to better understand what the next stage is to do it. You know, you say that you're going to go to the moon. Well, actually going to outer space actually isn't that complex of an ideal, but it actually has a lot of complexities to get there, a lot of complex moving parts. So each one of those parts is in tandem a simulation or an experiment. Now, remember, people in crypto really don't do simulations. They just take an idea, toss it out there, and if it doesn't work, they're like, rug pull, oh, scam. Well, it's not really the way that you should be considering these things. You should consider each point to how it best appropriates and uses the next pillar or component in front of you. And that was one of the things that we talked about on with RHMax, is what are the pillars and components of the system. One of the main ones we started with was no leaky boat. We want to make sure that all the fat is actually cut across the board from how are we approaching it, how is it being used, who is going to be using it, and where is the most appropriate use case of that energy. Also, not to look at any externalities that take away from the core focus of what each particular milestone chunk or delivery that we're exploring does. A lot of people want extra things that don't benefit the system. And if it benefits the system the best, it actually benefits the user the best. The next pillar is going to be creation, not inflation. And so if you think about all the crypto stuff you see, you got people stabling out to a stable coin pegged to $1. Well, I thought we talked about $1 as an inflated asset. No one wants dirty fiat. Why are you pegging to $1? Well, you're using the same unit of measurement you're just accustomed to instead of thinking what a stable unit of value is. When you think about yield, you have to think about where is that yield coming from? Is that yield coming from inflation of your tokens? Is that yield coming from airdrops that are just dump forever tokens? And staking technically has two components to it. It's time lock to prevent you from yourself from the T-share realm, and it's yield or number go up in value. Both can be considered a yield of gain if you are getting extra tokens, but yet your APY or the inflation of the token base goes forward. Well, that's not really the best avenue. Deflation people talk about, but that they want yield on top of a deflated asset. We have to really explore what makes the number go up and then what actually makes the scarcity more rare, going back to De Beers diamonds or all the other things that make things precious, collectible, or the aspect of prestige. The third is going to be Permabull tokenomics. And what Permabull tokenomics is it has, let's call it a benevolent whale or a overseer that actually will go and take a particular percentage. With most of the gift tech stuff, it's 90% on the gift to gift tech. On the iBurn, it's 85%. But 85% of that economic energy is going to remove that asset you just directly created. So not only did you create the asset, no inflation, but that economic energy you used to create this rare asset, 85% of that economic or 90% will be used to remove that supply inherently of itself. And that's kind of the difference between trading the token and actually participating in the creation of the token. When you actually create the token, you're participating in its removal, not just exchanging of hands. We have a couple other posts, but let's just keep going on other stuff.
I'm good with this one.
Okay.
What do you want to cover next?
I'm not really sure. By the way, how's our voice going? So I think we're working, but I can't hear any feedback, so I have no idea if I'm clipping, if I'm loud, if I'm quiet.
No, you sound pretty functional. Good. There's no issues.
All right. Thanks, Farmer. How's your day farming, by the way? It was good to talk to you last night.
All right, here, just farming some shit coins. Hopefully, I'll be farming more shit coins.
Well, shit coin farming every day, huh?
Yeah, you know. Start somewhere.
That's right. All right, so we've already understood the phonetics on the loop system that we're talking about over here. Let's have a little peek at the chart just to kind of see where we've come and where we've gone in a simulated sense, right? We've taken this ideal in idiom, we've explained it in the flow chart, and now let's see what's going on the actual chart. If it decides to load. Chaos theory, man. Okay. Something else.
We are looking good. 84 pulse per GIF is the current price.
Anyone remember what it was yesterday? Was that 67?
Yesterday was... Yeah, yesterday we were hovering in the 70s.
Okay. So, where are you at? I'll put my glasses on.
Yeah, yesterday it went from the 50s up to the 70s.
Sure. And so what we can see here is, remember, we're always going to be calculating in pulse terms. So right here, we're at 84 wrapped pulse. But as we also are showing over here, we've got that 10 unit ceiling in between each other, where when it goes above that particular value, people have the opportunity to arb it. And we can see that over on the Perma asset, that we're now sitting at 95. And someone came in and they yesterday were trying to understand how is something that only has 198K of market cap and 11K of liquidity able to double in a day. And that's because they're not really understanding the value on where these tokens are created and where everything's been going. So I believe like yesterday we passed 4% of the entire gift supply had been burned. And if you want to take that into an interesting retrospect, now remember that's not burned as in Permabull, that's sent to the debt address. That means that 4% of the supply was actually created into PermaGiff, right? And so they didn't understand the case value on what this actually means. And Giff said it the other day on RHMax's stream. PulseX has been running for almost a year, and they were at 4%. So we're very, very close to it. I have to look at the actual numbers. But we have already surpassed that within a month because PermaGiff actually launched on the 4th of last month. So within a month of time, a fourth of the supply of Giff itself was created. PermaGiff was created, and a fourth was actually removed from circulation as the core furnace asset that striked this whole thing.
So since PermaGiff does, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, PermaGiff actually gets deleted out of the system through the buy and burn. Okay, so we started off with 1 billion Giff. Do you know what the max possible PermaGiff is?
Sure, the max possible PermaGiff that could ever exist is 1 billion. And because you have to take one Giff to make one PermaGiff. But the difference is as those two reflexively go down, the ability to just have and create Giff depends on those who want to burn their Giff for PermaGiff. Since we're more community driven with our bags, there's no team supply, there's no team liquidity, all the rest of that type of stuff. Only the people that want to move and mint Giff to PermaGiff will make the total possible at any time 1 billion. But since the Permabull takes 90% of that economic asset to delete it, that means long tail just from this one metric. The Giff's going to laugh at me. I got to do math. What's 10% of a billion? It's going to be 100 million? No, 10 million?
100 million.
100 million?
Yeah.
Yeah. That means the top that it could ever be would be 100 million, period. That's just on this particular cycle. If we look at what's going to happen with iBurn, it gets much more fundamental because with that, the amount of PermaGiff that's going to be burned gets a 22.5x on top of it. Let's go ahead and pull up that buddy right here so you can kind of see that dovetail difference between the two. So with Iosa Hedron, we're doing a couple different things, right? Another simulation on an experimental tech. We've already said, do we want to still stick on the token supply before we jump over here?
I think we covered. I thought we covered it.
Sure. It was just like, because now we're just going to jump really hard into this instead of, let's take a moment to discuss this for 1 minute, why it's that much more important, on why there could only be, if a perfect storm happened with just pGiff and Giff, only 100 million Giff, or 10% of the supply, right? With this particular right here, each Iosa that gets burned and sent to the buy and burn contract, 15% of that gets sent to the PermaGiff buy and burn. Now, the difference between that number is with this, it's going to be like 235 pulse per Iosa moved into the system, whereas if we're looking at Giff, it was only 10 per loop into the system. So the amount of financial strength to protect the PermaGiff price and remove it from existence for each Iosa is 22.5x stronger each time that happens. So not only could there only ever possibly be 100 million Giff, this 22x's its reach to even make it further and further deflationary as those two bonding curves work together. Does that make sense?
It does. And then real quick, from kind of an outsider's perspective, when we are looking at the base Giff to PermaGiff exchange, there's two things in my mind that stand out and make this token unique. The first is the Permabull idea, which is utilizing a good chunk of the actual financial tool itself to then buy and burn the supply on market. And the other half of this is that second part I was talking about, which is the use of Proteus. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Proteus. So we talked about this a little bit last night on the Hangout, which is that other versions of buy and burn methods typically get bottlenecked by having to go through a single liquidity pool that's programmed into it. What this one is doing differently is it's actually using a DEX aggregator, which is Proteus in this case, And instead of having to be forced to go through one liquidity pool as is written in the code, this actually looks for the most optimal pathing to get best price action to optimize that buy and burn feature. So instead of liquidity being driven to a single place, it's not really partial to any given place because you make those liquidity pools anywhere on the blockchain. It's not limited. So that means that you can always find the best possible option. So you're going to get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, and on
Quick question on that.
please.
If Pateas is no longer the best route, would the contract or system automatically route it somewhere else where it'd be more efficient, or would it, like, say there's a new aggregator that gets added to the PulseChain network, will it use that, or is that something automatic? Is that something you guys would do in the back end to look for the best possible route, or is it always just going to go to Pateas?
But right now we're locked.
Yeah, we gotta be closer.
Gotcha. So right now, though, we are locked to Pateas. And until, if Pateas does become unviable anymore, a change can be made. But until that point, this is kind of the way to go.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. No one's actually done this kind of stuff before. And no one's ever taken this more of an aggressive buy and burn approach, taking the creation, not inflation approach. But no one also has used these two methodologies to actually route it through the best possible avenue. So that way, not only does the system get the best price, but the entire use case of it moves at a more clean, no leaky boat fashion. And so, yes, like that's the reason for the proxy address is so certain fundamental aspects of how the buy and burn is being used can constantly be refined as different things come on or as more components get built onto it later.
Perfect. That answers my question.
Awesome. Where do you want to go to from there? What about you, Will? Do you got anything?
I am so fucking lost, bro.
I mean, so kind of more, but like
so I'm sure that there's a lot of other people in the audience that are lost as well, and this is all good, like deep dive information for all the smart folks out there. But the bottom line is that Giff will be taken away, and PermaGiff will not taken away, but Giff will be destroyed, and therefore will become more valuable.
Real quick, that's how I do my thinking.
Not more valuable, but there will be less Gifford token later.
I might have just bought it a little bit, you know. Might have bought it.
You are all free to do as you please. We do not give out financial advice. We just simply make observations. The only financial advice that I'm going to give everyone is go rob banks to make money.
That's not legal advice, but that is a way to make money theoretically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You heard it here first.
I do the dumpster diving, you know. Dumpster diving, nobody usually calls it up on you, so I'll do it.
That makes sense. Hey, Kinetics, are you there?
I believe he is dealing with his. He was talking about his 3-year-old knocking on the door earlier.
Gotcha. Kool-Aid stepped out to take a breather real quick and mull over an idea. He will be back shortly. Do we have anybody from the actual team that's still on there now?
So Gifford is listening. Ken is listening. Larry is, I think, taking the smoke break. But I don't think we have anyone on the team. But that's just the general. That's the general consensus of, or not the general consensus. That's the general explanation of what is Gifford where. And again, this is all. And I can't speak for the team. Obviously, they're listening. If I say anything incorrectly, let me know. But the idea is this was to test out a lot of the theoretical tokenomic principles before they launch Pulsar. So this is probably something similar. Like you will probably see something similar in Pulsar. And again, I'm not a part of the team. This is from what I understand. Talking with Larry and listening to Ken and Gifford and things, and I believe that it's written down on. I'm pulling up the chart right now. I believe is experimental builder token for the brand ecosystem with a permanent supply of 1 billion tokens. Gifford designed to facilitate and encourage innovation across all Giffordware projects, serving as a versatile tool for testing and implementing new ideas. Yeah, so Giffordware is a it's a testing token. But the supply is going down, and it has gone from 0 pulse per coin all the way up to 84 pulse per coin without any crazy dips.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about offline today when we were hanging out is that this is step one in kind of a greater ecosphere or a system of ideas, as Larry would probably call it. But the idea is that the point of this interaction here is to be tested primarily on its own to understand that the function itself works. I think that we've covered a lot of the actual technical fundamentals of how this one works, but I think that there's some... I have a few questions that I want to ask more from the economic/investment standpoint, as opposed to the nuts and bolts of what's going on under the hood. Because I think we have a pretty good idea of what's going on under the hood. I guess my question is, with the Permabull tokenomics, what theoretically could cause a downside in the price? Obviously, I think if someone who had accumulated a large position sold off, that would obviously affect price. And then also there's going to be liquidity bonding or pairing, with other tokens. So theoretically, if the entire market drops, then because this is somewhat tied to Pulse, that would also in turn cause a downside in price. Is there anything else that could do that?
Well, you really can't suss that how when all tide rises all ships and all tide lowers all valleys, you can get stuck on a sandbar, right? Yeah. But the difference is that the economic value that we're actually bringing into the system, that if Pulse itself drops because the buy and burn has more Pulse than just the value of Pulse, it's actually rubber banding off of itself. So its flywheel continuously has more combined value than the underlying asset that's dropping. Now, again, in any bear market, everything does go down. But in the question of everything, how are you leveraging the amount of value or economic weight moving into that vector to pull it back up? So let's just walk back in time a little bit to Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin inherently of itself is proof of power, right? The amount of economic power, electricity that you're putting in to create a hash. Well, you could do that at one point on one computer, right? And so everyone always said that when BTC was below the mining rate, that all the miners would stop. Did that happen? No. People kept mining Bitcoin, regardless of that fundamental factor. But when it got too complex for one person to do it, they had to start pooling their resources together to have more economic mass as one unit. That economic mass floored the amount of value that went through it and what the bottom could be, because the amount of economic mass that would need to shut off a miner inherently was the amount of economic mass where the floor would be for the price, right? If people would stop mining or continue mining, but there'd be less competition in the pool. Because if people were shutting off their miners, there's not as much competition to actually mine that particular Bitcoin to bring it home, right? So that little simulation there kind of like showcases why a floor and ceiling can be set within economic paradigms. And so with this particular Permabull mindset, all that economic resource is it's shared in a pool to push it back up if Pulse is dramatically going down, which if you had noticed in the chart the last month and a half, when Pulse is going down, the amount of Pulse per Giff went up, because that amount of resource kept recycling through. Now, when Pulse goes up and this resource has the amount of asset to burn that as well, it's a leverage rubber band on that particular metric.
Okay, so I guess this may be a little bit of a follow-up. As the creator, where do you see this project falling into the entire ecosystem that is PulseChain? Are you trying to provide a new function, maybe try to improve something that already exists? Where do you guys see this fitting into the entirety of everything else that already exists?
Well, everything that already exists has already been tried and true. If you're going to actually grab Lightning twice, you need to move forward, because lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. And so looking at different ideals to apply to old solutions give you more of a competitive advantage on how to evolve it, rather than to modify some code, put some paint on a car and call it something new. It's not. When you really want to develop something that's completely different, you have to step back and take a different approach to understanding. Now, what's really interesting, when you actually look at what has been done with this first stage. You can take any vanilla meme coin that's made on gopulse.com and immediately make it deflationary. And then use the economic power of the chain itself to actually give it bindable value, wrappable value. The same thing that a T-share is the quantification of time, your proof of time. This is the proof of PulseChain, but it's also the proof of economic mass going in, divided by the economic energy that it can to remove that token and make it more scarce. You kind of have to look back to how De Beers was created. De Beers is not a precious stone. What it had is a very, very, very reduced supply due to De Beers owning all the mines, and then from there changing the narrative on what people understood about it. That's why diamonds are a woman's best friend. You have to be a man to be able to buy a diamond to get married to prove yourself. That change in narrative, along with the reduction of supply, makes something prestigious. It makes something rare. It makes something luxurious. And so all of these idioms are how we think about things in the normal life. It just hasn't been applied cohesively to crypto. They want to stake it. They want to fork it. They want to keep going about the same fax machine technology, just like people talk about Bitcoin as spaghetti code. They couldn't unravel everything together and rebuild the machine again because it took too hard or took too long. We can see that in the gaming industry, and while certain games are stuck on particular engines because it would take too much financial time, effort, and energy to spin it up. Fallout and Skyrim are two examples. They're stuck on the Gamebryo engine, which is 15, 20 years old. What we're trying to do is not be painted into a corner with this type of multi-threaded, multi-component tech that we're allowing other people on PulseChain and crypto in general to have the competitive advantage to take a new step forward in a more productive manner rather than chasing after silly shitcoins or silly forked ideas that may not have had a tried and true process to do something new. I mean, that's the first stage. Now when we're looking at other components that we're looking to build, you have something very interesting, near dear to all of us that come from the Hex ecosystem, which is icosahedron. Before you had your native stakes, you were stuck. Whether your wallet was compromised, whether you lost your seed keys, whether you did anything, those stakes are now stuck in that wallet regardless of what happens to that wallet. When Alex wrapped an HSI, he took immutable code and built a wrapper upon that immutable code to give it icosahedron, to give it the ability to be auctioned, the ability to be traded, the ability to be sent, the ability to have programming on immutable code. And so this is actually adding the immutable code to something that's already been created, but allowing us to strike further on what we can do with new Perma assets that are binding to that embedded metadata.
That's a great transition, because I did want to get your thoughts on the whole Hedron Iosa situation right now and ask the question, where do you guys see, or what's your analysis of where Hedron and Iosa are at right now? And why did you guys choose to go that route for building the iBurn function?
Sure. Let me pull up a graph. Give me just a second. Well, first of all, the icosahedron people are probably some of the smartest in the Hexagon ecosystem. So they would not only understand what we were doing, but it was also a tip of the hat to being able to re-spin up the icosahedron flywheel. And give me one moment to find something I made a while back.
When you say flywheel, what do you mean by that? When you say flywheel, what do you mean by that idea? You mentioned it a few times as kind of like a way of momentum or like spinning off value.
Right. Well, first you have to kind of understand how icosahedron actually works, right? From the T-share to the HSI or the wrapped stake, how you can tokenize that and take it through a transfer, a sell, a new ownership. You can detokenize it to be back to just a wrapped stake instead of a tokenized stake. You can take it through the Hedron process to borrow against, or you can even stake Hedron or stake Hedron or an HSI, and I can't say HSI, stake Hedron to get the Icosa system. So this whole loop.
Good. Before we go too far, I do want to point out one of the things. I think it might be at the top of this page, but when we do talk about Hedron and Icosa, it's on a different one. We're talking about the hex stake instance, and that is specifically the wrapped hex stake. And that is fundamentally different if you just went on to the old hex.com and made a stake, right?
Correct, yes. And you can make native stakes in app.icosa.pro. Like, all of that is still... where's our little pop-up, buddy? Hold on. No, that's... Oh, there we go. All right, now I got it. Great. So, yes, so you can still make a native stake in app.icosa.pro. However, there's no really sense to. It's kind of like continue to hold on to your old AOL email address. I mean, it still exists. You can still have it, but I mean, do you really not want G Suite? Like, I mean, it's okay. But what we're trying to do is restart up the flywheel from the Icosa sense, because it has so much value as floor and ceiling. Because when you decide to understand that back in the day, you could take your E-Hex and then, or just Hex back at that point, and if it was cheaper to buy Hex, turn it into a 15-year stake, and then automatically sell it to the Icosa contract right here, you would get your Icosa, and then you could sell that back on the market to get more Hex than what you had started. So you had made a fundamental profit by arbitraging the floor and ceiling. The problem is that the auctions stopped happening. And one of the reasons we also wanted to use this use case is because Alex created a bootstrap. He created a bootstrap of yield for the first 360 days, if I'm correct, for a reason. And so after that, they would have to use the auctions, maintain the auctions to continue that perpetual motion of that contract. By using eIcosa and pIcosa, we're doing two different things here. We're possibly bringing the first token to parity in between PulseChain and Ethereum. And by doing that, we're creating a use case for both Icosas at the same time. Tenemently, also, we're also giving you a use case to use your E-Hex again, should you have it just lying around and want to create Icosa, which also restarts the sending of the auction house of 15-year stakes, which then you would use Hedron to purchase with, which then gives the purpose for Hedron.
I think you might have just dropped a little bit of a golden nugget there, which is that theoretically, this is now recreating the use case for eHex. And as I'm sure everyone is aware, we had a bit of a falling out recently with eHex due to the idea of Richard Hart saying that gas prices on Ethereum are not getting fixed anytime soon. Therefore, PulseChain solved that issue, and PulseChain kind of became the more dominant one. So it kind of seems that if you were actually going to do that Quattro Cinco stake and then try to pay a straight up gas fee on Ethereum right now, it'd cost you an arm and a leg. But what you're saying is that you can still have that 5555 stake, but instead of actually taking it to fruition and paying the gas fee to do the calculations and unstake it yourself, you just sell it to the Icosa contract for a singular gas fee and receive value that way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so you'll get the Icosa and they'll create the value that way. Now, remember, Alex is working on a V2 system, and who knows what that will do. And also remember, in a 15-year stake, who knows where Ethereum will be in gas? I mean, like, logistically speaking, it can't even 15 years old. It's like striking right about that time. Yeah. So it's not even 15 years old. So we went from weird ideas on a white paper to now people having crypto on their phone, programming assets, building financial lending platforms, building metaverses, all the rest of that in less the amount of time than that stake has been created. Now let's take the next question in. Once you actually have dealt with a pre-staked asset and you are buying something that's already done, you're not putting in your time you put in, you're putting in time served. So if you buy an asset that's 7 years old in a 15-year stake and Hex is who knows what price, I don't like price predictions, but let's just say it's grown with the amount of legs that ETH needed 7-8 years to do, Bitcoin 13 years to do. These assets still exist. And these assets will be able to be unstaked at a future gas layer problem, whether that's a layer 2 solution that, because this is an NFT, it's tokenized, it can actually travel, it can actually move, it can actually do all sorts of things that can upgrade its programming to it, and we can bridge different things over. Who knows how we're going to be able to do those things in the future, but looking at it at a 15-year timeline, this restarts that system to get that economic energy from an E-hex or a P-hex stake fuel for the fire, but you can automatically just take that economic value of Iosa and bring it into the iBurn system, into the Giff tech system, and start to generate an ARB yield off that right off the bat. Yes, Tam, you should always be staking through the extended solution. Now, the difference is that you normally don't want to trust things like that. What did Richard say? Like, normally don't trust people because they could scam you, but this time you should trust me. Alex is probably one of the most brilliant people around. Giff was telling me that he smushed so much code into each block that you couldn't even get maybe like 5 or 10 extra characters or even lines in there. It is the most optimized piece of anything anyone's ever seen, but you don't know that unless you talk to people who look under the hood. Not someone that I have, but the people that I trust that are definitely programmer heads have looked at it, and it's almost immaculate on how much that was done. So if looking at that much pedigree was put into that process, I'm sure the V2 aspect that he's going to be developing will have that same kind of focus. And so I wouldn't really be worried about unstaking a 15-year stake in the future. Now, granted, the real question is what's ETH going to be cost at that point? But also, let me ask you this. How much is Pulse going to be cost in 15 years? We actually haven't solved anything with PulseChain. We have a number unit bias that there's more zeros. So for us in air quote dollar terms, it's cheaper. Now, here's a fun part. Because Ethereum and Pulse are sisters post proof of stake, whatever tech that's been done on Ethereum to optimize gas and all the rest of that here in the future, we can do on PulseChain. So those upgrades are baked in to how we forked the chain. So that kind of things are just interesting to consider when you're trying to use foresight, especially on tech that's moving so bleeding fast on foresight of what we're going to be there. So that helps a little bit.
So Giff token launched about 3 months ago, right? And then PermaGiff launched a little over a month ago, right?
No, the fourth. A month today.
1 month today. Okay. So is there a front end for people to actually be able to go from Giff to PermaGiff, or are people still going to have to resort to operating the block explorer?
Yep.
PermaGiff.win. This is how we do it?
Yep. And so with PermaGiff.win, you're going to say how much gift do you want to have? Like right now, say I have 1,000, right? And that is $5 and 103, right? And so it's going to take you, right now you can see the arbitrage in between. So pGiff is now $5.76. Now what you would do is calculate the change on the side. So you would add this number to this number to see if you have an arbitrage opportunity. And this is just on the first layer of the road, right? Kind of like there's really no difference between a road, a street, a highway, an interstate, and an HOV lane. They're all roads, but they all do different things on how they're being driven upon. And so when we add like iBurn down to it, and the Permabull has 22.5x more economic energy, those spreads are going to be much, much, much wider. So that way that arbitrage opportunity is there for you to take.
Gotcha. And then is the iBurn function out yet, or is that still in development?
Everything's done. I mean, at this point, Giff is putting the cherry on top with everything to make sure it is good and deployed. He is the most surgical person to triple check and quadruple check everything to make sure it's ready to go. Because we believe in saying it's experimental, but also have the fundamental wherewithal to not launch something unless we feel that it is battle hardened across the board on anything. So Giff would have never announced it if it wasn't ready to go. And we did that on Thursday's stream. Next Tuesday, we're going to be having all the Iosa heads, and definitely, Zenith, if you want to come on with all the rest of us, so Sloth, Maxim, myself, Giff, all of us, graphics, all of us need to really talk about what this really means fundamentally to re-execute this, not just in hex, but understanding how floor and ceiling works. And then it'll also have the callable burn function there, that the users will just be able to click the button and press and automatically create that arbitrage over, which automatically handles everything for you to be moving it over into the Permabull bucket as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see two different fundamental, interesting layered mechanics working in real time. And that's really why it's experimental tech. Air quote, no one's done this before ever. And we're trying to not only think outside the box at the same time. So it's best to go slow. And that's the problem with when moon, when this, when that. People want something even though it's going to break, it stinks, or it's undercooked. Like, you really want to take the time to let food simmer so that way it's perfectly to what you're trying to create it to do.
All right. Yeah, that stream on Tuesday sounds like it's going to be absolutely star-studded. So to reiterate something I think you just dropped as well, which is that you mentioned the ability to do arbitrage by calling on the function with a singular click. Is that different than how we've been how you probably had to do arbitrage before this point, which is kind of like manually?
Yeah, 100%. And so you have the manual access of most people do arb. They're arbing stables for the most part because it's the easiest way to harvest one point to another. Now, long tail, when something like Tetra comes on, we're going to have a lot of that automated use case and application be available to us. But with this, since the tokens themselves automatically have this war chest, you don't have a fear of cheating out on it. In fact, it's kind of cheat proof, because if you sell something and you're trying to trade against something in the wrong way when so much economic energy is protecting it and creating the ceiling to do it, selling at a loss is a very bad solution in this type of thing, because the perma asset can always be bought back up by its own protocol, being protected by its own protocol. So that's another pillar. Besides not painting ourselves into a corner, we're trying to showcase why protocols should protect not just themselves, but any other nested protocol within their index of being built on top of.
Awesome. We're going to check the chat real quick just to make sure we're not missing anything. Will says native stakes are stuck on whatever wallet created them and have singular functionality. HSIs can be moved around and used in several ways if a wallet is hacked or seed phrases are compromised. Yep, that is correct. That's the idea of the wrapper. It's the ability to take it from something locked to your wallet and then being able to transfer it.
Hey, Jesse, if you're lost, come on up.
Yes.
Hey, Jesse, if you're lost, come on up. It's easier if you want to come and talk with us to explain that if you're lost. Otherwise, I have no idea where to start.
I'm trying to do my best to ask some peanut brain questions here and do a little translation. Speaking of which,
I think most of us are lost. Like it's just it's very good information, and I think a lot of us can grasp a lot of the concepts, but it's very complex. So I guess that's what he means by he's lost. Like we kind of get it, but we're still a little lost. But we're following along.
It is. I feel you guys. I'll be honest. When Kool-Aid tossed me down the rabbit hole about 2 weeks ago, he just threw me into Telegram chat and said, "Here, have fun, go learn it." And I was like, "Oh God, what am I doing?" And I consumed a lot of knowledge without having an understanding of the basics and the fundamental things first. So one of the things I recently discovered was that the reason that PermaGiff and Giff exist is that you have a way to turn one into the other with a nominal fee that is then used to pump the other one. Without that fundamental understanding, a lot of this will sound like gobbledygook, but I promise you guys, if you try to just piece together what buttons you push and what you receive at the end of it, it's one way to wrap your head around the concept itself. And then I think what Kool-Aid here can do is really help fill in the details there and help you understand that black box that we interact with.
Yeah, and I think that's the fundamental thing too. Like, you turn on your car, right? Do you understand how a combustion engine works? Like, the worst case scenario, don't put water in your fuel tank, but you still turn on your car. You just know the small points that you need to do as the driver to be content that you know what you're doing is correct. In crypto, people usually only want to check out candles. That's all they care about. They don't really want to care about anything else. And we want to encourage people to slowly start eating the elephant one bite at a time. And that's the one thing I really like about our Telegram chats between the Pulsar one and the Gift Tech one and Giffordware, we have a really friendly, welcoming people that will try to explain this stuff over and over and over again. And remember, like for my career, when I build a level, I tear it down 100 or 1,000 times before it's correct. That doesn't mean I didn't do a good job. It just means to do something with a level of execution that's the best it can be, or understand it the best for when trying to understand it. You have to go through it a few times. If you want something complex from an easy user experience, just press the buttons. But here's just an easy gold nugget if you want to treat it like your 5-year-old thing. If you hold Giff right now, you hold the only underlying asset that can ever create PermaGiff, period. And if you hold a perma asset, whether it's iBurn, PermaGiff, or whatever else we do, all the economic energy of our entire ecosystem goes to remove that off the market because it's created, not inflated. So I guess the first thing that I would digest is, what do you care more about, number unit value, even though it goes down, or would you rather see green candles? Most people want to see the green candles. But what if I told you that those green candles get even better if you don't do anything whatsoever? Now, you can choose to take your car on this road, the street, get on an interstate, get on an HOV, you can get on all, go drive in a downtown, which is complex roads, or just chill out and just drive on the one road. You don't have to do anything complex, especially with this one layer. But if you understand there's a lot of complex things happening in your favor, that's dope. You turn on the car, you get to where you need to go. I mean, hell, think about automated cars in the future, right? I get to my Tesla, it drives me. I don't even need to use the wheel anymore. I'm not even driving anymore. Do you care about how it's getting that telemetry data or its cameras are reading? I would, because it's driving me. But it doesn't mean you have to. And that's the thing, not the scary part. That's the good part, is you can take a very simplistic approach to this. You don't have to press the R button. You can if you want, because it's there for you. Having complexity and having simplicity is equally valuable. The simple thing is, if you want to dig in more, there's a lot more under the hood for you to understand. But if you want the super simple answer, I just get your Giff right now, and then you don't have to do anything else with any other Perma assets. But if, let's say, you have Iosa that's just sitting around, you can now do something with your Iosa. If you want to play the game to take your Iosa to earn some yield on your Giff, you can now do that as well. If you want to use another ARB machine on top of it, you can now do that as well. But realistically, the treat it like M5 is, if you hold Giff, you hold the diamond mine that someone else is going to want to have later to create PermaGiff, to have that extra token that's going to get rapidly reduced in supply.
One of the personal lessons that I learned along my crypto journey was that use cases don't have to be complex. When I first got into this space, I was looking at Hex and I was trying to understand why people were very hyped about it. Because in my brain, I was thinking that cryptocurrencies and tokens and coins had to sing, tap dance, and shine my shoes all at the same time. But in reality, the use case for Hex was just being the proof of time or the proof of lockup, aka being a certificate of deposit. No more, no less. That was literally it. It was the magic of the T-share over a period of time. At the end of it, you get more coins you put in. That's really what it is. I think if you want to kind of use that analogy here, it's like, yes, we dove deep on the nuts and bolts, and we really, sure. And we unpacked the idea of this internal combustion engine and how it actually works. What I personally am seeing on the outside looking in from this one is that we have two tokens. First one is Giff. It was a stealth fair launch, no sacrifice, no pools, no vetting, no nothing. So the good news is it was a fair launch. The bad news is that you're a little bit late to the game at this point. However, remember, it's only 3 months old, so that's not too bad. The saying is that Giff is a meme token in that it doesn't really have. Sorry, was that? Oh, that was the other way.
Larry got me a beer.
Gotcha. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah. So Giff is the meme token because it doesn't really have a use case other than being used to make the PermaGiff. And then the PermaGiff, you can kind of think of its use case as similar to Hex, which is that it's not going to do all these million things and get you access to Sam's Club and get you a hot dog while you're there. What it's going to do is it's going to be a coin that has a mechanic built into it, which is the buy and burn feature. There are multiple aspects of that buy and burn feature, whether it's the Proteus routing or whether it's the reinvestment of its own economic activity. But the point is that this is a token that is designed to be buy and burned, and it can't be yielded or inflated. It can only be created through the destruction of the Giff token, which is also not inflating at all. It has a set supply of 1 billion and is only going to be reduced. So if you want to look at the use case for these two tokens, one is a non-inflating asset that is used to create another token, and that other token is a token that has a phenomenal buy and burn feature built in, and again, is not inflating and is only going to be driven up by price action and the creation of the token itself, or also the iBurn in this case, which is another one that we can get into.
Yeah, I was just thinking while I was just grabbing everyone beers. Is that a good summary? No, it was a great summary. How about this? And I always said it that Hex, natively a token, is your only way to get on a T-share train, right? But realistically, let's rubber band it back to what we're talking about. Hex is a meme coin if you don't actually put it into the T-share engine. It's a bloody meme coin. What it is, it's the only ticket to, or the only key to get into immutable yield that has carrot and stick, right? If you emergency unstake, naughty, we get tokens, you don't, and the OA gets refilled, right? The OA in that situation is the Permabull. The thing is that the OA is not touching its tokens, whereas the Permabull is redacting the supply every time that you do it. And because it's locked in that sense, you get icosahedron on top of that use case because you built on top of it. You got communists, you got airdrops. But realistically, if you're just holding liquid Hex, you're still holding a meme coin. So using that ideal or that idiom that if you just held Hex and didn't participate in the T-share, and the system didn't reflexively work as we're doing it now. Now we've learned through experience what happens when you compound a system and give it more momentum, energy, and drive. And so if you take that process that if you didn't really understand how complex a T-share was, because there's a lot of complexity to it, between bleed out, between type of emergency unstake, between the amount of well, I mean, life's kind of a Ponzi, right? The real thing, the difference between life being a Ponzi is I didn't understand it. If I actually understood how it was working, now I can see through Alice's looking glass, and through the looking glass we go. It's being trapped in something that you don't understand. That's really the Ponzi, because you can never get out. The Ponzi is a glass ceiling that actually keeps getting down on you every time, and it looks exactly the same because the sky's always blue in a glass ceiling. We just don't know how compressed you are to the system spinning out. Kind of like we were talking about at dinner with the entire fiat-based system and how it's just compounding debt on debt on debt on derivative debt on derivative debt. And something I sent to Will, Elon saber rattling that. What was the article I sent you, Will? It was right before this.
Yeah,
and then we had mass of breaking down.
The dollar will be worth nothing. Elon Musk issues stark Fed warning as stealth money printing grinds Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP price higher. So,
well, the funny thing is that people are going to use the same buzzwords for those things because the only buzzwords that they know how to understand to describe it. But the Ponzi is never moving forward, and those that understand how to get out of it are the ones that actually can't escape it. Right? That article very one-sided in what they understand with their knowledge, but as Hexkins, we have a much more fundamental knowledge of the components going into that kind of wherewithal. So if you understand that just putting in a T-share without worrying about it, the magical Charlie the Unicorn T-share, you can handle it just this way. But as all of us that were there originally trying to break down a T-share, these components are pretty easy to understand once you decouple from them a little bit, because we're handling things in a very different direction, just like what iBurn will do to that entire flywheel of not just the Hex ecosystem, but adding so much more economic energy into the pGiff ecosystem. And I can tell you that there are other people very interested in us putting on that there. But then we have our next strike first, which is Pulsar. Pulsar's taking what we've learned from these two different experiments, complex or not, and then applying it to even a more complex solution, which is how do you do that with two L1s with a bridge? What if you could take that experiment and turn it into something that P-Link maybe have an interest that someone may come on from the Link company and turn on their admin keys over here and use Link as an oracle, or do something with Wrap BTC, or you can even use the Atropa narrative to this. What we're doing between putting Giff Tech, Permabull, No Leaky Boat, creation not inflation on PulseChain has never been done before, and it has never been even thought of, I think, in any of the other crypto blockchains, because they're all doing the same thing. Sometimes better, sometimes way worse. Sometimes the blockchain isn't up. Sometimes it critically fails and crashes. Sometimes tokens get locked in liquidity pools. There's all sorts of crazy things that happen, but I don't think people are really innovating in the real way that we need to be, because this technology is moving so critically fast, just like AI, just like augmented reality and all the rest that's going to be coming. If you're not looking into the future when the future is changing so quickly, you're going to be painted into that fax machine maximalism corner again. It's just inevitable. It's just how life evolves when things rapidly change. So if you're kind of scared about that, just come chit-chat in our channel. Look, for me, I'll send you game design videos because I think it's so much more important to learn these topics outside of just from a crypto bro or an influencer, because they're just going to tell you what you want to hear. They're not going to give you any educated dialogue that you're going to come back and be like, oh, I can now see how these things connect together, rather than me taking a crypto banter or someone else's opinion on what's going on because of a bubble. Bubble is market sentiment. Market sentiment is fickle like the mob. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't understand why a market does what it does, as well as how technology can do whatever it wants to, and then the mob or the sentiment reacts to that. So,
Kool-Aid, you're an absolutely terrible influencer. You haven't promised me the world or told me I'm the prettiest girl yet. So,
I'd say we're going to get drunk in the hot tub later and then really, really talk about complex things. There will be no 5-year-old conversation around. I want Einstein at MIT. Fucking
hot tub party. Hold up, I'm on my way.
That's what it is. Alrighty, do you want to move over to Pulsar? I know it's a little bit more complex, but that is kind of the next evolution of this whole project, you guys, right?
You want to paint? I'll go smoking. You do what you do best.
You want me to paint?
Hey, you were doing it earlier, right? You want to do it? I'll put you on the spot.
I mean, you can. I just want to make sure that the information I'm putting out there is actually correct.
Sure. Well, I'll look at what you got.
Did it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it again.
Yeah, because like the understanding what Pulsar does is we're dealing with this multi-headphone wackadoodle mic that we can't hear ourselves in real time. It really is. Hey, we do things in real time in Telegram in real time. In fact, and that's why we're doing it live. So use just regular paint. I can put Photoshop up is actually the easiest way, because I think you pretty much have a good grasp of it. And then let me go take a smoke real quick, and you paint. Oh, come on, where are you hiding?
My supply curves again.
Well, I wouldn't do supply curves, but I mean, come on, here. But I think instead of going through Pulsar's white paper, which we can if we need. I think having a fun little explanation. Why is the mouse not showing up? Oh, there it is. I know.
Pulsar.
Okay. Hey, I'm gonna drill him on his homework. So I gave him some homework on the ride up. Right, because if you want to look at Pulsar, there's a lot of complexities. Or if you wanted to look at Giff Tech, this is a very complete version of how we're transmuting the power of ETH with a token that's proof of ETH because of the deflationary mechanisms of Titan, and we can go through that in a little bit. But if we just want to like look at what Permabull tokenomics is and how it can bind two L1s together, I think you might be able to draft more of a explain it like I'm 5 way than I can. I know. I'm putting you on the hook. I'm the best influencer ever.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this one a whole lot.
No. I put him on the hook. There you go. Good luck.
Thank you. Yes, everyone, welcome to the part of the stream where I play Picasso. Okay, so it's what it is. All right, so we're going to be talking about Pulsar. What Pulsar is kind of built upon the idea of Titan X. For those of you guys that don't know, Titan X is an Ethereum project that utilizes both ETH. Let's see if I can do an ETH. That's an ETH, yep. Okay. And then it also uses Titan X. And then what it does is that you put these together and you mine both of them at the same time by locking it up over time. What this does is that it gives you something that's valuable in the ETH along with rewarding you with the token that is the thing itself. So what Pulsar does is it's trying to take this entire concept and apply it cross-chain. So typically when we've had to go from like the ETH network to PulseChain, you got to use the bridge. So what this project does is it acts as the bridge, and it's incorporated inside of its own black box. It's also using the Titan X idea of locking up beforehand, and then we're also combining it with Pulse. So we are using a valuable asset as part of the medium exchange, which is ETH. We are using something from the Titan X protocol. I like it, Will. Yeah, so we're using effectively the Titan X protocol, and we're going to pay homage to it. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to burn a good chunk of Titan X that comes along. Part of it's going to get burned and sent back to Titan X. Part of it is going to be brought across the bridge onto the Pulse chain side, where we are going to get rewarded with Pulse and Pulsar. So what this is doing is we are actually, you might call it a vampire attack of sorts, which is like we're actually trying to utilize some of the value that's locked on Ethereum and bring it over, or at least encourage it to come over to PulseChain. So the money is already over here, and we have little money over here. We want to make this big money because we are self-interested in PulseChain and we want the projects over here to be successful. So the reason that this is hard to explain is because it's actually a novel concept. One of the things that Larry has beaten into me over the last 2 weeks is that many projects are actually just forks and they're nothing new. I know that one of my favorite quotes is saying that there's nothing new under the sun. And unfortunately, Larry is not a believer in that. And he's actually trying to build things that are new. So Pulsar is trying to take, we'll recap, ETH, Pulse, and we're trying to output.
Yeah, you're going good.
Pulsar, Pulse, and then along the way, Titan X also gets rewarded. And then we're using a buy and burn function to help boost this to the moon.
Yeah. And this is why, like, did you listen to Dune half the time when you were riding up, or did you listen to the videos?
You spies. The worms are hungry.
This is what we're working with in here, just so you guys know. But we have so many fucking buttons. Look at all these buttons that we can push. We couldn't figure out how to push.
I think that's right. It was working right beforehand. It was literally
30 seconds.
It was working right beforehand. And, oh God, why line paint?
Because you're using a superior product.
Okay, fine.
This is a favorite of many sailors without internet.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so, Jesus, I'm painting. So, yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. This isn't going to work. I pressed B for brush, and we can't get there. So, if I'm painting, we're going to be...
I don't think I got the intricacies, but I think that I tried to cover all the starting and the end points. Were there any of those that I missed?
I don't think so. I think, first of all, if you have to ask why Titan, Titan experimented with Zen. If you understand Zen, it's proof of gas, and it's a fair launch, which means that it's going to be inflating till it's deflationary. It had a bunch of other components, but to keep it simple, I won't go into that. But Gifford and I thought it was very interesting that we could bind and build off of this economic model to actually build a liquidity bridge in between both different chains. And the reason that you can do that is it's deflationary model because it's attached to a buy and burn, and why making a creation not inflation asset is so important to PulseChain, because that's also not been done. Because that also wires back into ERC, PRCs, fork PRCs, and any of those other components that get there. So if you can solve that very first problem with something that's exceptionally deflationary or inflationary to begin with, now you can strike on something that's so much more less fair launch. Anyone out there you want me to draw? Would it be better to look at a white paper?
The white paper is very pretty.
White paper is very pretty, but I think it talks about those things in a very easy, chunkable sense. So with minting, you're getting the increased value over time with Pulsar because of the deflationary aspect of Titan and the build on Titan products. So as people are building on Titan, they are essentially depleting the supply with a use case, but they're not necessarily moving it to Pulse. Now, granted, I happen to say that there are a lot of people that are built on Titan, people that are coming to Pulse that I talk to almost every day. So binding that economic power into what we have been crafting with the simulation of Giff to get pGiff, with now the simulation of iBurn, is even more fundamental with the other Titan builders because of the example that we're setting. But you also create dynamic arbitrage in between both of those two chains, because normally with Giff and pGiff, you're getting arbitrage on just one chain, right? Just Giff and pGiff. And when iBurn comes in, that ceiling gets so much more dramatic, and a reduction of Giff gets so much more dramatic. What if you could do that arbitrage in between two chains at the same time? That sounds pretty damn tasty. Contracts, technical stuff, but remember the bridging side is the Pulsar pathway. That's where it's been taking us a bit of time to get through our simulations, that we're comfortable with doing something that we only expect the best of ourselves, right? We expect 100% headshots on how we're doing it. That's why we're taking into composite and digestible chunks to make sure that the core beam buy and burn features actually work across the floor. So we're setting the ETH and allocation, time frequency, and slippage tolerance. That's all the admin keys that we have on all the rest of that, but it all comes back to Permabull and how that's going to be perning Pulsar on Ethereum, but reflexively adding thick liquidity to Titanx and Pulsar on PulseChain, our home chain, to take that intermittent value and creating a launch pad that then we can do the other stuff first. That's why we started the way we did and are working the way we did in that sense. You got some stuff, like if you're a Titanx holder, you do have the ability to get incentives for burning. Now, that's important. That's super important if you want to keep with the Titan X side of it. But once you come to the Pulsar side of it, the Titan X line is theoretically drawn. We're not tied to that anymore. And some people come into the channel and be like, is Pulsar is Gift Tech on burning Pulsar and all the rest of that? No. Once we cross over the Pulsar pathway, we're enabling other people who are building on TitanX to use this launch pad and landing pad of cheap swaps, cheap arbitrage, and all the other things that we're building in it. But from the Gift Tech side, that's over. We fundamentally created a life raft for that community and the ability for that community to take place in all the extra goodies on PulseChain. But more importantly, we set the stage for what an Ethereum-based asset can do on PulseChain as a superior counter to high ETH gas fees and anything else that's going to happen with that network. Because let's be realistic, PulseChain has with its aggregators fully decentralized system. Everyone using those aggregators is a hopeful student of Richard Hart or a Richard Hart idealist, not a maximalist. So we've learned some things along the way that we can now apply to our own chain. Let's see. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I'm going to try to. Oh, cat falling off. Sorry, Mowgli.
Yeah.
All right, so to recap, old concepts from Giff, PermaGiff that are being brought over here. We have Permabull buy and burn functions and creation, not inflation, which is that we're not trying to incentivize people through yield. We're just trying to use good mechanics on a pre-existing pool of tokens. Okay, new concepts that we're working with now. We are now interacting with the idea of using buy and burn to strengthen liquidity pools. Obviously, there's the bridge. That is going to be a large technical component because, I mean, bridges have been notorious in the past for being exceptionally difficult, slow, costly, and a weak point in the systems for hacking. And then additionally, we're also interfacing with the TitanX system now, which means that there's interfaces there, and we're introducing that token here as well. Am I missing anything for new concepts?
No. And what the thing is, you hit it right on the head in the end. We're interfacing with a system cross-chain, instead of just interfacing with the system on-chain, which is what we're doing with Iosa. But remember, with Iosa, we're also dealing with Iosa. So we're already setting that first leg up to understand how do we interface between two different assets, theoretically forked from each other, even though they're cross-chain. Now, it's easier to move that asset over on one side to do this second test, right? And that even if it's complicated, you have to at least appreciate that we're doing it in component chunks because it's complicated. We want to itemize, solidify, and green check mark off that it works everywhere in between of the circuit before you add more complexity onto it. So yeah, we're actually interfacing with someone else's smart contract DApp information, buy and burn pool, entire ecosystem that it has. And then using that to limelight over and handle something else on another chain. So those are the definite fundamentals that are being addressed in the stuff we're doing now, besides the gains that you will get later with the ecosystems that we're creating. So it gives a way to get gains out of a more refined system that hasn't been done before and do it compositively in components that make sense and are easily digestible for the next iterations on things that we build.
Okay, so to kind of go back to a little bit of abstraction from the maybe I don't know if it's useful.
I don't know. I mean, like too much.
I was going to say, so from the perspective of a button pressing monkey, outside of buying and holding and selling tokens, how can we interact with this new product? Is it ETH? Is it Pulse? Is it Pulsar? What are we doing here? Are we locking things up for a certain amount of time? I don't really know what I'm drawing.
No, but you're doing great. You're doing great. I am putting you on the spot. And that's the most fun about pivoting in real time. Because like if you want to build blockchain technology, being able to understand it, and this is what Giff always talks about, steel manning it, and he did a great job, is understanding it enough that you're explaining it to the person that is having you answer the question. And it gives you a way to set the floor for where the understanding is in tandem. So the technology inherently of itself is proving many different points of factors. And I guess at the end of the day, iBurn isn't where we're stopping. In fact, this is just the tip of the iceberg to prove where we're going with the next iterations of this. But everything is built on the paradigm of Giff tech. And we're trying to, the next day, I could pull a kinetics and say, I could tell you what we want to tell you, but I can't in 2 more weeks and all the rest of that type of stuff. But realistically, this should be one of the most exciting things as a Hexagon to understand that it's new tech coming in to not only restart and put fire under the assets that we love, but build new ideals on the chain we want to exist in the future. And that's a very important fundamental to move forward while trying to digest what came before and use it as a good breadcrumb, a good stepping stone, a good mark that we need to keep striking for each time. Instead of me rattling on, do we have any more people that want to ask questions? Because we're too many monitors, right? Too many cooks. Up here. Oh, there's my boy. How you doing, Banana Man?
I'm doing decent. I just woke up, so.
Is your lady there? Well, I mean, we broke the entire audio earlier, so I don't have any of my sound bars to wake up your lady.
Okay, I'm going downstairs. So keep on going, guys.
Oh, that's all right. Now, actually, Elite, you're one of the better people on the understanding of the systems, and you're one of definitely the best mods that we have. You and the Mo really put you are the gear that greases all the things. We couldn't appreciate you enough. So even if you just want to talk about the things that you have learned through the process, rather than ask me questions. So kind of just like, what's on your mind, my friend?
I'll be right back. I'll be dressing myself. I'll go down and I'll have a chat, okay?
And okay, we can't see you, so you don't have to dress. But even if you need to escape from wherever you are, make sure that you are fully able to return.
Yeah, for sure. My girlfriend's sleeping next to me, so that's why.
I know. Whispers in the dark.
For everybody that's out there, if you have any questions you want to ask about this, or maybe just ask the guru questions in general, you can either hop on the mic or you can put them in chat, and I will play. What's that monitor?
Vocal arbitrage.
Vocal arbitrage. I will vocally arbitrage your written comments to our ear holes. That's what I'll be doing. But to give you guys a little bit of a buffer time. So even if you're not interested in specifically interacting with these things, I personally think that these products are great for PulseChain as a whole because A, you're creating a new possible use case for the base L1 token, PulseChain, which is through the buy and burn function and the pairing with the Giff token. It's a new project that utilizes an existing system and competes for demand on the open market. So it possibly increases demand for PulseChain. And then additionally, this is not just additional projects on PulseChain network itself. It's honestly people who are trying novel and new ideas instead of just forking things. I know you've been drilling that into me for a while now, which is that we are not copy and pasting. We are actually writing code and testing it and breaking things in real time to learn.
Yeah, and don't you want that? That should be how it's done. And just a different strike. I mean, it's all core Giff Tech team that's doing on the FanForge stuff, but we're trying to bring multiple different facets of value to our beloved ecosystem. With FanForge, we're trying to bring real entertainment, and bring all the eyeballs of different aspects of people who aren't in crypto into something that's a scarcity of a digital resource or an entertainment or a story that may not even know they're on the blockchain. But when they realize that they are, man, that's kind of cool. That's pretty kind of cool. So,
do you have any media for FanForge?
Yeah, just go to fanforge.xyz. And actually, fuck it. I can bring things up, so I can do that. Look. So yeah, definitely check out the stream with RG3 on Discourse Syndicate with Paul Lamung. He is the finisher for cinematics for Blizzard for 25 years, the creator of Tyrael and Diablo 1. This guy is a beast. And for myself, I only have 7 credits under my belt after working in the industry almost 18 years. And just a little sizzle demonstration of
Larry, the audio is not very good on that.
FanForge.xyz, and you can fix that by playing it on your own device. So, because right now I am not touching the audio board till we are off this stream. No buttons, no nothing. I am not looking at that damn thing sideways. You, sir, have found yourself in a corner, and I will deal with you later. You good little audio interface. So. I know, right? It was working 30 seconds flawlessly before we did one thing, and then I had to completely hard reset the entire thing and lost all my settings. So, FanForge, 2 completely different projects. Now, Core Gift Tech is on core team of FanForge. But what did I just try to explain? We're trying to bring different ways to Elite. You better get back up. You said you were getting dressed. No typing when you're getting dressed, sir. Both hands on the wheel. But if you try to see like the value we're trying to bring to PulseChain, it's not just thinking outside the box on the technology aspect of wow, this is really complex. Technology should be complex. But if you want entertainment, you just want to be entertained. You want to enjoy a good story. You want to tune up to your Netflix, get your digital collectible, be like, this is mine. Maybe it goes up in value, or more importantly, it's not about value. It's about prestige. It's about owning something that's timeless. Will came out here and he gave me a golden box with one of the gems from Skyrim. It's going right next to my signed Pip-Boy by Todd Howard one day when I finally unpack. But there we go.
You guys can't see because you're on the computer, but I can see.
So I can see. Oh, can I? Okay, good. But it's just so endearing because why? That's a gift to me from my entertainment lifestyle. That pedigree of what you own going up in value is scarcity, and it's important and all the rest of that. But understanding why that's important is more important. It has more of an underlying resource of integrity. So, yeah, our core team here is really trying to think outside the box. And that's why when we use the preface, experimental technology, we're being bluntly honest. This has never been done before. So just understand that. But, I mean, if you look at the results, it's not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. That's, I guess, the real question is, do people want to see candles or do they want understanding? I'm personally someone that wants to understand the system rather than react to the system. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of us core people, as you know, Degen Roundtable, some of the other Hexagon communities, we actually want to understand the system all for one and one for all. Each one teaches one and the world burns brighter. Gains are great, especially if you understand them. If you understand your gains, hopefully you try to learn from what's happening from them, because it's now not magic internet money. It's actually made some kind of difference in your life. So that extra time learning is more and more effective. All right, Elite is talking. So why don't you come up from the... Are you able to talk, or are you still hiding in the basement?
Me?
Okay, I'm here.
All right, there, buddy. So, but this is going to be fun. It was Elite. I'm going to have you talk to Zenith because I talked to you. This is our mod. He basically keeps me up from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. every day. So you two have a dialogue, and because he knows just as much as I do, but he always asks concerned questions just to test the waters. So I think this is going to be a very good red versus blue.
Oh God. Are we just going to put a pin on FanForge for now?
Yeah, FanForge just I was waiting for Elite to come back. And you should pay attention to both, because the community that we're building is our community. And how do we bring value to PulseChain? Fancy, complex tech, that's one option. But entertainment is a more interesting option that you don't have to care. You just have to sit back and watch a story, watch a movie, read a comic, all the rest of that. That also hasn't really been successful or done on anything on crypto, because this is what crypto is meant for. So yeah, you Elite, you and Zenith, have a chit chat.
For sure. Real quick, before we get into it, I do want to answer Jesse's question real quick. He asked if FanForge is a GameFi token. It is not a GameFi token. It is actually a platform. You can almost think of it more as something closer to Gala or Alluvium, which is, it is not a singular project, but it is a place or a stable of other projects. And this one is specifically targeted at people that are not inside the crypto space. What I mean by this is that this is trying to target the crowd that likes to collect things like serialized comics, first editions, these things that like Larry was talking about earlier, that have prestige and rarity. And it's honestly one of those things that's for the love of the art. And I think that this is actually a legitimate sell, because the team of people that are behind this is a lot of the people from Discourse Syndicate. And if you look at the track record of these folks, this is a lot of folks from Blizzard, EA, Activision, and people that have been in this industry for collectively for probably over 100 years together.
100 years, yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't just like people that have made games. This is the people that were making the largest AAA games over the last 20 years. So that's the team that's behind this. They're the ones putting out this place to be. And crypto is honestly just a hidden backbone behind it, which is that users have, like, you can imagine like a Steam wallet. However, it's actually a crypto-backed Steam wallet, and all the things you purchase become NFTs that go into your wallet, which you can trade if you want. It is something that does not require any crypto intelligence to get into at all. All you need is the love of the art and the things that are on it. Okay, that's what I got. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's time to talk about the Giff token. So, going over my compatriot here, is there anything that you think I am not quite understanding about Giff, PermaGiff, or iBurn?
Man, it sounds good. Oh, wait, no, I'm not muted. There we go. Yeah, it sounds good to me, man. It sounds like you've got a pretty good understanding of it. And that's based on my super duper peanut brain understanding of it. I got about 3 to 5% of what you guys were talking about this whole time. I just, listen to things that sound good and then buy them or sell them, hold them, use them, do whatever.
That's fair. I hate to be that guy, but Will, I wasn't. I was trying to engage Crypto Elite here. I apologize. I forgot his IRL name.
Oh, correction.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Crypto Elite, please go.
I
thought you were talking to me.
Were talking to me. You need to forgive my English, as I'm Dutch native, so I'll do my best to speak in English.
Brother, I get with the English language on a daily basis. I feel you.
All right. So, what for me sparked my interest in the Giff token is basically so when someone pushes up the Giff token or down, you basically create some kind of arbitrage thingy. So people basically then mint the pGiff and sell the pGiff side down to basically rebuy the Giff side of it, and then keep on repeating that process, basically allowing people to just burn their tokens and reuse that same capital to push up the price again. So that's it's a quite interesting system. And this is just Giff alone doing it on itself. The iBurn thing is releasing very, very soon. And I think that's going to make some kind of loop to just keep the ARB going forever. So yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about. So if you've got something specific to talk about, feel free to say so.
I have something for you while Larry's out of the room, and that is the dirty 2 words of game theory. I want to ask, is someone with potential money to put into the market? I've talked about it before on the stream, which is that we're now over 90 days after the launch. As someone who's not in the market yet, is it too late to get in? And if you do, is there a way to find like good entry points? Because honestly, I'm looking at this chart, and it really only goes up and to the right. And I think that might be partly by design due to the buy and burn function of the Permabull part of the contract. So it's like typical. I mean, we're also looking at this in terms of Pulse. So I'm sure if we go to US dollar, we're also going to get some of the price action of PulseChain. Yeah, look at that. There it is. Okay, this is a little more up and down, so to speak, but at the same time, it's largely up and to the right. So is this just one of those things where the earlier you are, you're more rewarded, or is there actual ways to be a savvy investor on something like this, do you think?
It depends the way you look at it. I got in at a very, very low price, and I also had the feeling I was buying the top, and I had that feeling for weeks, and I just kept on buying tops. But I think the pulse chain, the pulse ratio is the most important to watch, because the Giff token is going up slowly versus pulse. But I think once pulse starts moving, you're basically compounding your pulse against it. So whether you like Giff or whether you don't like Giff, you're basically accumulating more pulse. And I think the main reason why it goes up versus pulse is because you use pulse to mint the other side to then sell it again and rebuy the Giff token. I think that's the main reason why it goes up so much versus pulse, making it some kind of leverage. Telling you when to buy is a little bit hard for me. I'm not sure, but I know the IBRN contract is launching very soon, so a percentage of that goes to the Giff token as well, to the pGiff token, to basically push up pGiff again, which allows Giff to be arbitraged again, and perhaps even faster than the burns. So.
I can't sum them up, but
Gotcha.
So you get Pulse to die, right?
I think so.
So
one of the questions I have for you is, you mentioned that the relation to PulseChain itself as part of the function of this. And the question is, if Pulse runs, does that mean that the Giff token is automatically going to run as well? Because this is one of those questions that you get for a lot of other tokens, especially like over on the Ethereum side of the house, which is that, is this underlying asset or this layer 2 built on Ethereum, is it actually going to outperform Ethereum, or am I just better off buying Ethereum? So the question here is, how closely is the Giff token tied to Pulse, and is it possible for Pulse to outpump Giff, or is Giff always, just by the nature of its design, going to just inch by inch just creep farther and farther ahead of PulseChain?
So I've been observing the chart myself, and whenever PulseChain dropped, the Giff token reacted very, very poorly against it, because Giff went up when Pulse dropped, but once Pulse started moving up, the ratios never changed. So for the moment now, it has been leveraged on Pulse always. Whether Pulse goes down or up, it has always been leveraged against. I've been watching the chart daily. Like, I've been watching this stuff for many, many hours by now. I wake up early to check on it. So yeah, for me, it has never moved away from the Pulse price. So you have seen that lately. You've seen the USD price go up a lot because Pulse went up as well. So the leverage in the USD chart compounded against it. I've been sharing that in the main chat as well, because we've been going up versus Pulse, but Pulse never moved up. So you basically, what happened in that scenario, you've seen like maximum 25% dumps, while everything has been dropping for 50-60%, because the Giff goes up versus Pulse, so it mitigates your USD value loss. And when Pulse starts moving up, you compound against your Pulse. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. For me, it has been leveraging against Pulse the whole time. It has never deviated away from that. So yeah.
That's fair. I've got the two charts pulled up here. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Giff token launched on February 2nd. So I marked out February 2nd here. If we look at the 7th of February, we had a local low. We had a bit of a bull run for Pulse up to the 13th of March. So if we want to look at that on the same, over on the Giff chart, then we can draw out to the 7th of March. So this time frame up until this point, that's the area that we're looking at where Pulse was actually pumping, and then anything past the 7th of March, or the 13th of March, excuse me, is the downside.
Could I add something first?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
I think the Giff, the Perma Giff contract went live only a month ago. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. Good point.
So yeah, the arbitraging has been going on for around a month by now. So the chart is older, but yeah, there's more things coming onto it. So it's basically just a month that Giff really has been burning its supply. So just to add a note on that.
No, that is an excellent observation. Thank you for that. And then, do I have this market cap? But anyways, yeah, I don't know. These are just questions that I think about. So for me personally, I would love to be a developer and a builder, but I just don't think that's my skill set or where I'm at right now. So where I come from and to try to approach things is from that investor mindset, which is that at the end of the day, I'm here to try and stack small wins to improve my life by building a financial base for the future. And the things that I want to interact with, I want to ensure that I fully understand and that they also have positive upside. And I fully understand that anything in cryptocurrency is going to be high volatility and there will be risk. But can I understand that and can it be managed? So with something like Giff, it seems very good, which is that the buy and burn Permabull function is something that is going to, in my opinion, maximize upside and reduce downside potential. At the same time, though, there is a trade-off because everything has pros and cons. One of the things that's going to do is it's not necessarily going to flatten out the candle, so to speak, in more of a horizontal way, but it might be more linear as opposed to the wild up and down roller coaster that we're pretty used to seeing for a lot of other cryptocurrencies.
No, you're 100% right. Because right now we're only dealing with the flat ceiling of a 10 Giff ratio in between the two because not all of the cylinders are being fired on. Right now we're only dealing with a one cylinder system, Giff and pGiff. Once you have multiple different cross sections or Venn diagrams, you need 3 circles to really create a Venn diagram, just like you need 3 points on a line to create a shape. So you have to have multiple of those different components to really see the linear approach of them compounding on each other. But the fact that just pGiff creates a flat line of up, and this chart doesn't include the deflation and burn ratio aspects of what that Rorschach painting should look like. You should be seeing multiple different data sets rather than just candles, because you're dealing with multiple different components than just value. You can see the value because the number go up, but that's not the whole story being told. Here, please keep going.
No, I mean, that's really about it for that point for me. I mean, so if you want to extrapolate this and compare it to other things in the market that we operate inside of, if you are a person that bought Bitcoin back in like 2014, 2015, and you held it since then, congratulations. You are generational wealthy and you have hit it big. For people that did not do that strategy, I'd say there's also people that have been possibly even more successful. And those are the ones that truly understood the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. At least this is my personal opinion. I think that people that effectively understood where to buy and where to take profits, and then also at the same time hold that moon bag and hold that portion that you are never going to sell, because that is going to be the base for generational wealth. That's how you really compound these effects. So the reason I asked about the idea of functionality in a token reducing downside is that obviously we don't enjoy price going down. However, in my opinion, I think it's a bit of a fundamental concept when it comes to the cryptocurrency space as it exists right now. I fully accept that Bitcoin is probably going to dump 75% at some point in 2026, maybe 2027. That's at least what my chicken bones and the tea leaves are telling me, based on the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. So the question is are these functions going to be able to minimize downside and reduce that dumping effect, or are there going to be other factors that are going to do that, like such as adoption or just like giant liquidity pools, and maybe even just the IQ of the overall crypto investor going up over time? Because I think we're actually seeing that in real time. Not only are these projects and the tokens getting more complex and people have a better understanding and a grasp of the things that make them tick, but I think that the average person in the market, the learning curve is very real, and you can see it in real time. So I'm trying to, I guess, game plan for myself how to effectively use this tool that has been created, because I can understand how my engine works, but at the same time, if I don't know how to drive the car, it's not very good. It's not of good use to me. Does that make sense?
And someone said we have a green screen. Did something freeze on our end?
We have a green screen? Kool-Aid, that new green screen is super fancy and those novice mistakes aren't acceptable, sir. Who's your ISP, or do you run Windows? Windows, God forbid. Fedora Linux is better than everything else. I don't know about that one. I think this...
I mean, technically, this is a problem with an audio interface connecting to USB or wireless mics that somehow broke the system. So if it was just the audio stuff in the beginning, yeah. But, if you want to just take green screens in general, green screens teach you why you need to reboot, why you need to have different perspectives, why you need to have firmware upgrades to be able to still interface into how tech moves that critically fast.
Crypto, I see your comment here with saying that if an asset goes up over time and you could sell 50% forever, you basically never run out. That's true, because when you keep selling 50%, it's basically taking smaller portions of an ever decreasing supply. So you're never selling 100% of the thing like you're saying. However, at the same time, the amount of money that I have to put into the market right now is obviously a product of literally the cash I have on hand. That does not take into account all of the investment that I plan to do in the future. So if price only goes up and to the right, that means that if I'm trying to sell and buy in at the same time, I'm effectively doing nothing. So the question is, when do we do each of the activities, and how do we optimize for it? Or is this honestly just one of those things that you just keep buying and it goes up and to the right, and then at some point you stop buying in and you just watch price appreciation go up? So it's absolutely possible that my strategy might not be optimal for this token or this tool, and that's totally fine. In which case, I should either move on or find a better way to use the thing sitting in front of me.
Well, not only that, so understanding if you're selling 50% as you take profits, is that an archaic way of looking something when everything changes? If you can take a bag of creation that can create the asset that its ceiling gets rapidly increased by multiple components being adopted, and when you air quote take 50% profits, what you should have said is you put 50% back into your Giff. That locks your eternal diamond mine back on up. That way the rest of it you can do what you want with. Arb it, profit it, all the rest of that. But you never let your bag of Giff move off of its vector of where you started. You increase it, but you never let it go under, because that's a very simple fundamental that I'm trying to express right now. And I know I'm letting other people play with the ARB machine because it's their fun. It's not mine. But when the ceiling of what happens with iBurn comes in, that is a 22.5x each component that the original Giff to pGiff does. That means your opportunity to take the pGiff or the Giff bag that you have now, take one Giff to what happens to one Iosa into iBurn. That is a 22.5 more reflexive value that you can take and arb back down to get that one Giff back. But let's not forget what it does for iBurn itself. We're putting this technology on one more component that's also attached to another asset that we love. Iosa Hedron is the secondary thing that's probably the most important tech built besides a T-share? Because it's built on a T-share and it's built more complexly through a T-share to give you those fundamental tools, values, and vectors. And so those two together set the stage for how do we take yield while increasing our bags, or how do we take profit, not yield, profit, while increasing our bags? Because most people think the yield is random number from random token go up. That token may be worthless. What's the point in that when we can harden the tokens that we love better?
That's fair. I think the idea that you really highlighted on there is that when you do go initially from Giff to PermaGiff, and then you're able to take profits on said PermaGiff, instead of just going back into USD, which, I mean, you could use for personal reasons or whatever. Instead, what if you go back into the Giff pool? Because now you're, like you said, you're feeding into that loop to keep it going. And then Crypto Elite has a really good comment here, I think, which is that Giff does this on its own. What if you had other coins to Giff tech, feeding each other and giving it infinite arb loops? You need to think what is possible. I think that's definitely a good perspective that I might be missing on here, which is that, like you guys have been talking about, this is honestly the first iteration of many to come, I imagine, which means that this is not a final or a solid state solution. This is step one in an ever-growing arsenal of things to come. And at the same time, it itself is an opportunity as well. So understanding that there's more to come, this could be the ground floor. Based on that principle alone, it's reason to believe that this might be a very opportune time to buy that famous 1960s real estate for 3 chickens and a cow, and then watch it go to $1.65 million in 2024.
Well, hold on. I think Big K may be running around, and let me see when did this just happen? Yeah, no, you're right on all the rest of that. I would love to see if Big K can get in here right now. So give me 1 second. Yeah, but yeah, no, you're right. That cyclical cycle is pretty interesting.
Yeah, already we're bringing another guest in.
No guarantees.
No guarantees. Yeah, Crypto Elite, you say you're still learning yourself, by the way, but it is an amazing system. I agree. I am absolutely learning by myself as well, and I agree. The system seems pretty amazing. It's new functionality that has not been seen before. It's seen in other ways, but I think this is doing it in a novel way and doing it in a better way, to be honest. That's what I got. I know I see Farmer over there. I hope he's not falling asleep in that chair.
Farmer? No falling asleep, Farmer.
Oh, no, Farmer's not falling asleep. He's up. He's got his drink. I just started on my drink. I cannot fall asleep.
What are you sipping on over there?
Some vodka, cranberry juice, and some lemonade.
All righty. That sounds pretty good.
I mean, the hot tub's calling you later if you want to come on by.
Oh, yeah. I checked the flights. It's a bit far. I'm all the way on the West Coast.
Well, I mean, this fine gentleman next to me drove 12 hours. I am very honored for him to drive for everything to critically crash 30 seconds before we go live. But, I mean...
You guys can afford a car?
Yeah.
You guys can afford cars?
That's right. Farmer's stuck up the
car. I invested in Hex. I cannot afford a car.
Oh, I see. What about a horse?
Maybe a donkey, but it might take a while.
Hey, that's right. Keep the tick with the app.
Hey, this is something I want to ask you about.
So, Crypto Elite, you coming in with a great comment here, which is that this thing is marketing itself. One of the things that's very different about what you guys are doing with this project as compared to, like, I don't know, Richard Hart, is the amount of marketing, which is that both of these things were stealth launched. There's nothing that's really been shouted to the high heavens. You're not paying people. You're not, like, airdropping coins to people in an attempt to try to get them to pay attention. This is all, honestly, like you said previously, it's a pink elephant that you're waiting for people to discover and catch on to. Like, this information is publicly available. Like, we're showing you Deck Screener right now, and you can find this stuff on some of the top movers and shakers routinely. So it's also one of those liquidity pools that's large enough where it's not one of those. It's not a token like Degen Roundtable where it's about $37 of liquidity. It's actually got like 33K for pGiff, which is a month old.
So, and it's the dump tokens. Remember, the pGiff token is meant to actually be arbed down to the ceiling and used as a use case. And in fact, it's funny because the community actually just rebalanced the liquidity pools based on a conversation that Axis had. We talked with Maxi, we gave his perspective known to the community, and the community reacted. And we don't really have the need to really cheat around and get anyone in here for number go up. It's actually doing the work itself with just the core components. And what's beautiful about that is we get to spend the time with those people to everyone teach one and everyone learns together instead of being a complex race on things. Whereas just with the progress that we've made, what we're doing, it already has the legs and momentum to go incredibly far just with iBurn alone. In fact, I cannot wait to see the simulation of what's going to happen next Friday when we launch this stuff. And remember, there's going to be an iBurn launch party on Discourse Syndicate. These guys will be there. We've got some other fantastic old Hexkins we're going to get on there. And it's going to be, the standard old hangout on DS type thing and talk about where can we take PulseChain as a future now, and where can we develop the tools, the ideals, and the new mechanics, wherewithal of ecosystem and knowledge that we've learned across this last 4 years or less 8 years, depending on when you got into crypto or all the rest of that type of stuff, to now re-hedge the new experiences that we're doing on our chain, not someone else's chain. And that's pretty damned exciting, considering we're barely scratching the surface of what we're starting over here.
The launch for iBurn is exciting. I'm excited to see what happens and where this project goes. But to get back to the marketing point, I
think quick point. I think DRT needs a liquidity pairing with Giff.
Well, someone's gonna have to make that happen, and it's probably gonna be Will. I'm just saying. I don't know if my bags are large enough to support that kind of liquidity. I maybe have like $3 of DRT. I don't know. Maybe we can get Black Sheep to pump it up a little bit and get that liquidity number higher. But as far as the marketing goes, I know some people are going to try to compare this project to other things like obviously the flagship coins and all the marketing that it's done, from just people talking about it, the buzz, the largest airdrop in the world, that kind of thing. But honestly, it sounds like the marketing strategy for this is a feature, not a bug. What I mean by that is it seems in line with some of the core values. You've talked about the distaste for the cheaters and the goal to reward long-term holders while minimizing upside for people to come in and just dump your token immediately for short-term gains. When you look at the marketing strategy, in my opinion, it is people have to discover it, learn, and then make the investment into it, as opposed to see green candle going up on the 1 hour chart, try to get in as much as I can now, and then sell once I see the first bit of profit. It's marketing is for people that understand the concepts and are willing to put in that extra mile instead of just looking for a quick buck and quick turnaround.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly correct. And that's why in the early days, till we basically got the feedback that somebody, whoever's doing that, should reduce load balance it, we're like, it's fine the way it is. I mean, we still have to get to iBurn. We're still working towards Pulsar. Gift Tech and iBurn were steps necessary to get us to Pulsar. Without starting with Pulsar, working backwards to the components that we needed to, because we itemized the white paper, we knew what we needed to do. How do we get there? How do we get there safely? How do we get there with concrete back-tested data points that say this did work before we go on to the next thing? When you build a house, you don't start with the drywall. Right, you have to start with the foundation with an armature of framing, and then you get the niceties that looks good. And that's not when move in. If it's a framed house, maybe you're not going to get done with the rain, but you kind of want the drywall, the insulation, the windows, possibly a bed. That's when move in is ready. And so you kind of have to take that time with those components, and even the Pulsar Telegram chat is not as large as a Gift Tech chat, though it's the same people talking. It's just not the same people paying attention. The people paying attention coming into Gift Tech are actually asking them more questions. Most people that come into Pulsar are still like when moon. It's like they haven't figured out the differences between the two, which bloody is confusing to me, because this has been the thing that we've been saying. And if they're not, there's no need to push ahead that narrative, because once that narrative gets to that threshold and explosion point, it's just going to be crazy across the board because now we're proving it on multiple different assets on chain, on one chain, one asset that's multi-chain. Then when's multi-chain? When do we do multiple different threaded aspects on a more even complex ratio? Well, we kind of like to see the data points there first. It's bringing value to PulseChain across the board. That is our core team's idiom that we want to always hone in on and never paint ourselves into a corner that we're restricted due to prior mistakes. And that's why we're taking the time to actually agree and disagree on what's happening in real time. And we can see those data just as the liquidity got shifted around right now and is constantly user-based being manipulated for the greater good. It's a bloody fantastic simulation in real time.
From the macro scale, it looks like the Giff and PermaGiff, and then also the launch of the IBERN token. It seems like these are concepts that aren't too crazy or too novel. You're just doing it in a much better way and actually writing new code for it and trying to not just copy and paste old stuff. It sounds like Pulsar is really going to be the next evolution of complexity, and it's going to be a large, large step forward. So if this is too inside baseball, let me know. But like, how is the project development going for that? How's your guys' timeline looking? Are there any things you're trying to hit in a certain time frame, or when it's ready, it's ready?
Yeah, when it's ready, it's ready. I mean, we know where things are. We know where things are moving. But realistically, there's no sense in striking till we see what happens with IBERN. Because IBERN's doing fundamentally the same thing that Pulsar does with a token that we love better. Right? We love eHex. We love eIcosa. We love eHedron. We love our system that we had. However, it doesn't take away from what we're trying to do with putting ETH against proof of ETH on Ethereum, because Gift Tech is proof of Pulse. You have to look at it in Pulse terms because it all revolves around Pulse through Pulse binding onto Pulse. So we're going to get there when we have a little bit of data points, but there's really no rush. Even if it was actually done, why would you not let the second horse out of the race till you have the finisher for what you started with to come out? It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. And that's what we're trying to do, is actually set that stage mechanically and organically rather than go on with I won't put any someone that will not be honest crypto banter to talk about this. There's no bloody point in that. If you find out about it from a friend or looking at a candle or somewhere else like this, now you can come in and chat with us and actually get to the real meat and potatoes of what's going on. Because when it's already when done, we're looking at it in real time, and we're looking at what do we do more to build on that gesture. How do you actually finalize the finishing touches on a painting? Like, you don't start with the finishing touches on the painting. You do an undercoat or gesso, an undercoat, change some stuff around, and slowly build your happy little trees that you're satisfied that is finally happy to be the zenith of the sun and cascade those final shadows, right? Like, it's just kind of ludicrous, and something when I build something that takes 4 years that people are nut crazy about 4 months.
Yeah, that makes sense. For people that have done the project development stuff, you know that the last 20% is going to take up like 80% of your time. Getting to that point, is it a lot of hard work? Absolutely. But at that point, you're kind of taking chunks out of the tree with an axe. And then to get through that last little bit, you really got to pull out the pocket knife and do the fine work. Terrible analogy, but that's at least what my brain went to. As far as traditional engineering stuff that I come from, this makes sense in my mind as to the crawl, walk, run method, which is that I'm not saying that like the Giff and PermaGiff is crawling from like a simplicity standpoint, but it is the first step. It doesn't have to be massive. You just want to make sure it works. Walking, I see that the IBERN function is that. We're iterating. We're moving on. We're actually incorporating other tokens into this. Fantastic. And then when you get to the full-on run with Pulsar, that's when you're going full speed. And that makes sense in my mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't forget, with IBERN, you also get the first parity between ETH and PulseChain with E and native Icosa. That's huge. Not this murder mystery type stuff, and I do appreciate the murder mystery type stuff that's going on. They're doing good work, but like, we want to hit parity to show it can be done within a strike that's not even our final deliverable. That's going to be cool to see if that happens. Now we've already bridged in assets and we've hit parity on PulseChain, not from Ethereum to PulseChain. And if you think about it, most people want a parity to the Ethereum asset instead of bringing the Ethereum asset to parity to the PulseChain asset. Ooh, interesting. Now it's coming from the other angle, sure. But this is how you think out of the box. Just because something got forked on to PulseChain from Ethereum doesn't mean we magically go to the Ethereum price. What if it comes and meets in the middle? Because people see the value of bringing the liquidity over here, because possibly it's more friendly from benefits, from execution, from all the rest of it. Because if ETH goes cattywampus and it costs $500 to a transaction or a swap, well, it's not very bag friendly for you.
That makes sense. We had a interesting comment here from Crypto Elite. He says, Giff burnt almost 5% in a month from being alive. Now imagine if this happens to Hex. So with the Iberian protocol coming out, how can we burn the Hex token itself? I understand that we use Hedron, right? As part of it?
Yeah, well, it's not being, I think he's saying put Perma tech on Hex.
Okay.
Then right now, that's not the place to start with that. What I'd like to see started is, because remember, there's only 6 or 7% of total liquid supply of Hex on chain. Like, that's it. What I'd like to see is a lot of 15-year stakes get locked up and taking that Iosa gains and then moving that through the flywheel. So that way there's still meat on the bone for Hex people for later. What happened is that stalled. And with that being stalled, there's so many things that we could do in the future if that's what our goal was. Now our goal is to innovate on the future. So just by striking on this particular aspect to get the Iosa Hedron auction house going again, to get people making 15-year stakes, all the rest of that already does the air quote take it off the menu for a while. But it's still a resource that could be purchased if somebody wanted to have it. And so that's a very better place to start than creating permatech on the core component of that ecosystem.
That makes sense. So it seems like one of the things you're trying to do with the Iberian token is, like you said, kind of re-jumpstart the Hedron Iosa system. It sounds like it pittered out a good bit just to lack of people actively using it. And this might be a bit of a contrast thing, which is that for the Giff token and the PermaGiff token, there's a lack of marketing. Do you think that maybe revitalizing the Hedron and Iosa marketplace and the HSI stuff, is that going to require some outreach and marketing? Or do you think people are going to be tied to green candle go up, let's see what's going on here?
Sorry, I'm commenting to Benny, but since I have the mic back, Cleo, nothing more needs to be said. Yeah, that could be a bottom signal. That could be all sorts of things. That Cleo's an interesting little bird, and that's we'll get into that with you later. That's a story. What was the end question right there?
Giff PermaGiff didn't use marketing to re-jumpstart Hedron and Iosa. Is it going to require some marketing, or should?
Here's the difference. That anyone that actually is passionate about Iosa Hedron, they understand fundamentally and dynamically what we're doing.
If that's the case, then where did it go? Is there just not enough lifeblood in the system to keep it running?
It's more a question for Giff. He is more because here's the thing: is that he was one of the original mods there. He knows everyone there. We even kind of poked some people in the hierarchies when they said that we were doing, and they love the idea. And I think everyone does love the idea of Iosa Hedron. It was just a little too complex for them to understand a little bit. Now, I love all of that fundamentally. But when people start to see the machine running again, it's kind of like we were talking about before. If you at dinner, if it's -30 out, do you turn off your truck? It'll seize. And what happened is the truck got turned off. And because the truck got turned off, eventually people just need to see that the engine's starting again, and then they'll come on in and care. But if an engine's being seized, who do you want there? Mechanics. You want people to actually understand how to retool the oil rig, how to actually land the ship versus a boat, right? You need to take your time to get the fucker to port. And that is the important things about understanding your timing, execution, and the wherewithal and the vector. Now, when you have to do those things, to take your time to move it through.
That makes complete sense. So obviously your project is coming out next Friday. And then I have heard rumbling and speculation that Alex is looking to do some sort of upgrades on his end to the entire system. Do you know if there's any sort of stuff planned on the other side of the house, or is everything kind of over here right now?
I mean, the Alex is probably, again, one of the more brilliant people in the world. We can never speak for him. He does what Alex does, and he does it for the best for the product, right? And he considers the user. But like we said, if the product is great, the user experience is better. And so I can tell you that he knows that we're building. That's all I can say. But we vastly appreciate everything that he built and what he will do in the future. And that's why we wanted to do something to help start that energy back into the system, because Iosa Hedron, HSIs are the future of anything with a t-shirt, but period. You can't go back to carrier pigeon when you've gone to high-speed internet. Like, we'll skip the fax machine mentality and maximalism altogether. Like, native stakes on Hex are great. However, the world has moved forward with understanding what wrapped bindable data is through an NFT. And granted, most of those things weren't known back in 2019 when all this is being developed. You can't, saber rattle Latin when, people are speaking in, caveman paintings, right? Like, there's no way to translate that data backwards, but what you can do is move it forwards. So now we have no idea what the V2 of what Alex's stuff will look like, but I mean, as one of the more brilliant minds in our ecosystem, I'm sure he's watching everything and will make the appropriate decision on whatever that is.
I like it. Awesome. I'm going to give one more opportunity for folks to ask some questions in the chat, and we will talk about it live here for you. Or if you want to hop on yourself, you are more than welcome to.
If not, it's not the time.
Correct. If not, it is time to get in the tub. Alrighty, we'll give you a little bit more, but Crypto Elite coming back in with some quick stats for you. He said total Giff burned yesterday was 3.76% of supply. Total Giff burned today was 4.16% of supply. Is that cumulative, or is that just?
I'm not sure where he's getting those numbers from, but I screw up all the time on numbers. That's why when I do math, the Giff comes in and he laughs. So I am not allowed to do that. That's why I'm our dancing monkey and the banana man. But the numbers are probably being taken off of debt address on what's being done. So it's probably an additive on what the total supply was. So if it's an extra 3.7% off the 4%, oh yeah, no, 3. No, I'm not commenting on this. I love you, Banana Man, but I'm not doing math on screen. There we go. See, you would do that. There you would do that. So 0.04% burned, but what was the number today? So if it was today, it's yesterday to today. So the vector is 37 to 41. That means 4 million was burned today.
Yeah,
right?
It was calculated on a.
Look who has some
when I used yesterday, and when I wake up, I mostly add the next one. I should do it in like 24-hour span. So, but this is a copy of the day before. I think it's way more by now. So, yeah, I just copied the old post.
No. What you just did, make another thing that says total burned in this unit would be 4 million. But I'm glad you found your pants. You're supposed to come back a while ago. Otherwise, I would have summoned us back to the hot tub.
Will, do you mind popping on? What's the link you posted here? We have memetics, theory of memetics.
That's how memes work. Earlier on in the conversation, I'm closing out all my tabs on my internet browser. Earlier on in the conversation, we were talking about like the value of memes when specifically when Kinetics was talking about like meme tokens. Like the idea of memetics has been around since like the 1980s when Richard Dawkins is the one who coined the term. But it's basically just like, everybody sees something and everybody recognizes it. It's essentially societal memory and stuff like that. So I just found the article interesting, and so I figured I'd post it up.
Well, no, you also have the olden loose lips sink ships, right? Propaganda or lettering or messaging is important to globally focus things in pro and in con. Right now, the meme is the joke, but it's the reality of the mob and what they understand the joke to be. Whether that's truth or not truth, it's just what people find funny or amusing or shocking, right? And if you go back to the olden days with propaganda, advertising, all the rest of that, it was the original meme because no one had information outside of that one block of imagery. Right. That's why the Statue of Liberty theoretically is so iconic in what it actually represents versus how that ideal is being treated today. That's a universal meme in what it was supposed to be immortalized in. So, yes, memes are important, but messaging and story is the most important part of the meme.
Perfect. Alrighty. Will, any last comments? I think we're going to start to wind down and put on the bathing suits. Any last comments for the people?
I was just gonna say, I'm looking at the DRT chart. The second largest sided DRT chart has finally started selling. He actually started selling earlier in March. So there is one whale that has never sold, and I don't know who the hell that is. But the second biggest whale has sold a lot of his position. He's still got a lot left. But anyways, that's just stuff. That has nothing to do with our topic of conversation.
True. Alrighty, we're going to pass it over to the man of the hour. Will, if you don't mind, if you have their Telegram link, would you mind plugging it in ours so we can get some folks over there if they want to ask questions or learn more about these fantastic systems and that token release coming out this Friday?
Yeah, so definitely come to Giffordware for Telegram, Pulsar for our sister leg of all the rest of that. Obviously, we're highly connected to Discord Syndicate, so we'll be on with Captain on Tuesday. They are on the PulseChain shore out in Canada right now. Captain, SJ, and everyone out there, hope you are well, and all our love to you out there.
It's far right now.
Yeah, I know, right? So at the end of the day, come on in, ask questions. Like those of us in our Telegram actually care, and we actually care for you to learn. I will try to give you other alternate information besides crypto stuff, because even as Zenith literally got a brick of stuff to watch, I sent him a bunch of game dev stuff. But I think he watched more or listened to more Sandworm stuff coming on, because I'm really good at gauging something when I have to put my what the fuck Larry brain on it. So it's okay. It's okay. The Bulgarian jihad is very important. So yeah, to come in, ask questions. Launch party Friday on Discord Syndicate for the effing hangout. Giff, me, and the Costa people, obviously, Zenith will be on there to come chit chat to see where is this taking our ecosystem. Because if you're fighting for the good of the ecosystem, you're fighting for the good of the protocol. And that's the best of the user.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Alrighty, that is all we got for you tonight. Thank you for everybody that stuck around this long, and thank you for all the good questions and all the people jumping in. Really appreciate everybody from over on the Giff Tech side of the house jumping in here and keeping it going and helping explain stuff to the folks that had questions. So thank you all. You are the best. Thanks for spending time with us, and we will catch you guys on Wednesday. All right, adios. Bye-bye.
Peace out, everyone.